Hello and welcome to another episode of Movies That Make Us. I'm Jake.
I'm Tracy.
And I'm Val.
And we are back. Episode 117.
Wow. We're 117.
Wow. For whatever reason, like when we hit 100, it feels like, okay, we are legit now. Like we talked about this before. We're not old, but we're like legit. Like under 100, it's like you're a new podcast now. We're like
we've taken our training wheels off.
Yeah.
However, like we still need directions down the path, I think is what, you know what I mean?
I like that because I was like, man, taking training wheels off makes it sound like we know what we're doing. And
no. We've taken them off, but we're not doing any solo rides yet.
Yeah.
And we're definitely not doing any like Tour de France type of thing.
Oh, is that ever our goal?
When we hit episode 1000, that'll be our Tour de France.
And we did it all without any steroids or
yes
enhancers.
Well, speak for yourself.
Oh,
No, just kidding. Caffeine doesn't count, right?
No, it doesn't. Not unless you were like a 4-year-old, and then yes, it does count.
Yeah, nothing I love better than like I get a soda at night and my 5-year-old will come down and be like, "Hey, can I have a sip of this?" And then they take a sip. Can I just have the rest? And then they're up all night.
That's when you just smack it out of their hand, Jake.
Yeah, and I know
and then make them clean it up.
There are people listening. They're like, "Yeah, just tell them no." And they obviously don't have kids and don't understand how it works. So that's
why I said, be like, let them pick it up and go for a drink and then smack it out of their hand, because then they'll be afraid to do it again. It's by surprise them or scared, whichever.
Yeah,
a little bit of frightening. Yeah. I just want to say, sorry, there's like something on my screen. I just want to say that I know that I'm disgusting and full of sweat right now. It's going to be that way for the next. I'm just going to be disgusting until my wedding.
It's
pretty gross. It's everywhere.
I do want to point out, she mentioned this, Tracy, before you got on. And I was like, well, I'm not going to bring it up and point it out to people. So this was all Val that brought this up.
I know, because there's going to be people that are watching and they're like, is her shirt ruined? Is she? No, I've been going to hot yoga. And you know what I love? I was wearing black shirts before. And then I had there was nothing there to prove that I did anything. So I started wearing lighter color shirts so that I could be like,
yeah,
there's proof.
That's right.
I have proof that I earned this sweat. Yeah, it's gross. And now I can I have a new tattoo and it's super feels great right now.
Oh, yeah. I bet it does.
Yeah, I can't. I look at some of the places where you've gotten tattooed, Val, and I think, it looks really cool.
I've decided unknowingly and unplanningly, every side of my rib has now been tattooed because for some reason I hate myself.
Yeah,
I have heard stories, and I don't think I'd ever go near my ribs.
And that's the second time this week that you've said something or mentioned something that made me think you hate yourself. The first was watching Ready Player One again. I don't understand.
This is the thing is, you know how sometimes, and we've talked about it a lot on this show, sometimes you watch a movie at a certain time of your life or with a certain person, and you're like, this movie sucks. And then later in life, you go back to the same movie and you watch it and you're like, oh, maybe it was me or that person that sucked. And now you don't hate the movie. So I thought I would try it again. Love you, babe. Bye. I thought I would try it again. And I was like 20 minutes in and I was like, no, still sucks. And then I had some people comment on my post, well, you suck. And then I
saw that.
We're all 12 years old. No, it was a great comment. Well, you suck.
They seem like they were your friends. This is
the
thing.
No, they're all my friends.
You always post stuff and I'm always like, and somebody says something, I'm like, I should go in and defend Val. And I'm like, nope, because she's got it. and I'm not even worried about it. So somebody says you suck, I'm like, she'll handle it the way she needs to handle it, and I'll just keep scrolling.
Yeah, nobody's heard from that guy in a couple days.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is I don't know how much I want to get involved in that kind of stuff either. So.
Whatever. You secretly at least want to be like in the car when I dispose of a body at one time.
I've seen enough Martin Scorsese films. I know what's going on.
No, you'd be surprised. He'd be like, wow, she's super efficient. That only took like 5 minutes. There's no blood. Everything's clean. And then we go get pancakes. And then you're like, wow.
You focus on a project, you organize it, you get it figured out before it happens. And then when it happens, you execute it perfectly. In this case, you're literally executing perfectly. And then we go get pancakes.
This whole episode has taken an interesting turn that I don't know that I was totally
We always
prepared
do
for.
this though, the first 7 minutes of the show, and we never know which direction it's going to take.
It's true.
But
I was working with some young people, teenage young people, and helping them to start a podcast. We're actually recording our first episode this week, and I'm super excited about it. But they were asking, how do you like introduce the topic and how do you start it? And I'm like, wow, you kind of just go. I don't know. Like we have an intro that's standard, and then after that we just go.
There are podcasters that they will, from the minute the mic goes on till the minute the show goes out for everyone, that they have got it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say we know some of these people.
Yeah.
This doesn't work for us.
No.
We've tried to script us and like give us outlines and stuff. It doesn't make our show great. We're on the fly people.
Yeah.
We're like loose.
We're living on the edge.
However, these 4 teenage young men that I'm working with that have never recorded anything in their lives, we had to outline it a little bit.
Well, no, yeah, not everybody can be as awesome as us.
Well, I think there's an experience aspect to it that really plays a role. But you're right, not everybody can be as awesome as us.
So,
and it depends on the kind of show that you're doing as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Like true crime shouldn't just be off the cuff riffing. Yeah.
Unless you've watched so much true crime that you are now like, this is my boss at work. I'm pretty sure he could recite every episode of these true crime shows.
Oh, wow.
He probably doesn't need to research anything, but he is a researcher and he would write everything down. He would have files and he'd be pulling up things, even though he is a human file.
Yeah.
So, Jake, is this new podcast going to be part of the Stolen Droids family or what?
No. This is all part of a church youth group that I'm working with. So we're going.
You should call it Church Training Wheels.
No, they wanted to talk about what it's like to get a job as a teenager, and so that's what they're talking about. I think it's actually going to be really interesting.
Yeah, that's sweet.
I like that.
I'm proud of what they've put together so far, so I think it's going to turn out great.
Good for them.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. But speaking of gross and sweaty, we are going to be at FanX in a few weeks. So
we're hoping we're all going to be at FanX.
That was a nice segue.
We are all scheduled for something at FanX. FanX is currently scheduled. And I'll tell you, where we live here in Utah, I don't see anything being shut down between now and FanX.
Yeah,
no.
I don't think the conventional shut down unless the state makes them, and I don't think there's a chance that the state's going to make them.
No, I don't think so either. So I would just encourage everyone, you still have time, go get your vaccine, even if you haven't started yet, because you've got time to get it today and then get
at least get that first one.
Yeah. And everybody, if you're vaccinated or not, wear a mask. That would be my
I need to get a cool mask for FanX. Like I need to go, this is the thing. I'm going to Disneyland the Sunday before FanX. So I am going to grab some masky masks.
They will have masks there, I'm sure. Yes.
I would they will have masks there. And if you wanted to get some before the Disney store, which unfortunately is going to be closing here, but they have masks there that are actually really nice. I like the material.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll head down there today.
Yeah, the material.
I just got paid, so I might as well just give them all my money.
The Disney store masks do tend to run a little small, so take that into consideration.
Yeah, so maybe grab like a medium and a large of a design that you like,
medium.
and figure out
A schmedium.
Yeah, schmedium. Yeah.
The top side of my head is big. The bottom side of my head is small.
Hence the schmedium.
The schmedium.
My whole head and face is just fat. So that's how that works.
I've been doing face exercises and I do them in my car. And then people, like when I'm stopped at a light, and then I'll look over specifically just to try and get someone in the eyes. I'm going,
like, she's trying to communicate with us. What is she trying to
like,
say?
what is this crazy lady doing?
What song is she singing along to?
Is she having a seizure?
Is she okay?
Do you need help?
Should we call somebody? But all things going according to plan, we should be at FanX in a couple of weeks, and I'm super excited. I think the three of us will do everything we can to mitigate any kind of risk or anything like that. So if you see us, come up and say hi. We'd love to talk.
Don't hug us. Don't high five us.
Maybe right. Fist bump or elbow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we would love to at least talk to you and see you. We will be doing a panel on Black Widow that is being presented by Movies That Make Us. And I'm so excited for this one, Val. I think you've got a lot planned for it. And
yes.
Really stellar.
I'm excited.
Tracy and I are probably mostly going to be sitting by and listening to the other three.
No, you're all going to be. This is the thing about this panel, and I'm so excited is that, and I'm not saying that like other superhero panels there are not important, right. But as far as what I want to do with this one is I want to deep dive past like the comic book fun. And I really want to talk about this movie specifically. In Black Widow, the character, we're going to get a little bit into what's happening with Scarlett Johansson and Disney, just a teeny, because I think that it's relevant to some of the topics that we're going to talk about. But we're going to deep dive, so it's going to get a little serious, and we're still gonna be fun. We're still gonna talk about some fun things, but we're gonna deep dive into it. Like when she jumps out of the helicopter and she goes down.
Poses.
Yeah.
Does the pose.
Yeah. Tracy, if you could do the pose for us to start the panel off, that would be great. And what I'm really excited about is that as of right now, it is not Saturday morning at 10 o'clock that we're doing our panel. So we might actually have people come and listen to us. So I think that'll be really good.
I have one Saturday morning at 10 o'clock.
Is that the tattoo one?
I don't know. Where's my phone?
I just know
the tattoo one.
I am too, even though I will never get a tattoo, but I'm excited to hear about it. And I think it's interesting and it's fascinating. And so I'm totally into it. So
Jake, most people with tattoos have said that at one point in their life.
That's a good point. But yeah,
there's still time, buddy. There's still time.
Totally understand that. But as of right now, I do not foresee it happening.
I don't either. And it's okay because not everybody needs to have a tattoo.
Right. But I can totally respect the art that goes behind it and the talent that it takes to be good at doing tattoos. And so I'm excited to go to that panel. The only reason I mentioned the Saturday morning at 10 o'clock was the last panel that we did at FanX was Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And we really appreciate those that came, but it was not a big crowd. And so I'm hoping that
the two of you that remember being there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then I'm doing a show with Craig, our good friend Craig. Cast Off. I'm doing Glenn Glary, Glenn Ross with the Muppets. So that's going to be really interesting.
So, and that's going to be the one at FanX?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
See, I wasn't sure if that was like an episode you were doing.
No, I've got MASH with Blake this Tuesday. Just
Blake Castleman, who does the programming for FanX.
Yeah, thank you. I've got MASH with him on Thursday, but then I'm competing against my brother. And so you've got like Alan Arkin, Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon, like some heavy hitters. And then we're going to recast them with Muppets. So this will be, and Craig wants us to do voices. And my brother can do voices.
Oh, good.
So I'm screwed.
But you can sing.
Well, you do sing in any case.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah. It's not can sing. I do sing.
But I'm excited for that. Barring any conflicts, I plan to be there to help vote and get you a win against your brother. Yeah.
I'm not going to promise to be at anyone else's panels. Yeah. I'm sorry. I love you guys, but I'm going to have a pretty busy schedule.
Yeah.
Totally. So, but speaking of people who can actually sing.
Yeah.
We're moving into Coda. Is that
we're
what
actually going to talk about the movie that we planned on talking about today now.
Yeah. So we are talking about the movie Coda. There will be spoilers. I don't know why we have to warn you about that at this point,
because there's always someone that's like, "Wait, I didn't know you were going to talk about the whole movie." That's what we do here.
Yeah,
we talk about the movies that make us the people that we are. And this movie, this Coda, we don't often do newer movies. We usually do movies that have resonated with us for a long time. But this movie right out of the gate made me a better person and made me cry.
Yeah, I had a hard time finding anything that I could identify with in this movie.
Yeah, it's a completely foreign subject to you.
But you are a boat fisherman. I don't understand.
Yeah, I know.
Why you would have nothing in common.
True. That is something that I have in common as I'm living in landlocked Utah as a fisherman.
You're just out on the Great Salt Lake trying your hardest, and you come back every day with nothing.
Fishermen in New England think they've got it rough. All I get is shrimp.
He's got his own little tug. He's out there shrimp fishing.
Yeah.
Brian shrimping.
I pictured I want to do a photo shoot of this.
Yeah.
And I want the boat to be like this big.
Yeah. Just a little tiny boat.
Yep.
Well, that's all you need, really.
So for those that don't know, tell them what CODA means, Jake.
So CODA stands for Child of a Deaf Adult or Deaf Adults. And in this case, she has two parents who are both deaf. And she even has a brother who's deaf. And I will say this, one of the best things about this movie is the fact that all three of the main characters who are deaf are played by deaf actors. And I'm telling you this, there are individuals that are super talented that are deaf, that are actors. And that's why it kills me whenever there's something that has a deaf character and they don't cast someone deaf to play it, because the actors who are deaf are so talented and they're just so much talent in that community. And these three are amazing. I mean, Marlee Matlin, everybody knows Marlee Matlin. But the dad, and I don't have my phone, so I'm going to have to look it up on the computer here. But the dad and the brother were both amazing as well. I felt like those three performances really stood out to me. And I was glad that that's how they cast them. So I think that was great.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting.
With the brother. Sorry, I was just going to say real quick. I read an interview with the brother, and he said he loves the fact that the director said, "I'm not casting deaf actors. I'm casting actors who are deaf." And he said there is a difference, which I loved. I thought that was great.
Yeah. Well, and I thought it was an interesting take on a story, because I think as an audience, we have seen movies in the past where it's usually a hearing family with one deaf person, and that deaf person is trying to figure out where they fit, and they're struggling with, parents and school and all of these things, and they feel alone, where this is the exact opposite of that, where this young girl, is the only hearing person in her family. Her family feels very alienated. And I think a lot of the time during the movie, they kind of alienate themselves, because the mom and dad came from a time frame of they were alienated a lot, but now they live in this town that they're thinking these people are going to treat them different, but the people they don't seem to care. They're different, right? Everybody. And I think, and the brother is kind of in the middle, where he wants to do all these new things, but the parents are like, well, we can't do that. Nobody's going to let us do that, because there's three different age ranges going on here and three totally different experiences. And the daughter, who can hear, has been their interpreter her whole life. So all she knows is kind of their lives. And she's trying to somehow, as a senior in high school, figure out her own life. And her mom, it kind of struggles with it. And it was so interesting just watching the dynamic of them at the dinner table. Because we all have those moments. We're sitting at the dinner table with our family, right? And everybody's got a different thing going on and a different story. And all she wants to do is listen to music, which they cannot hear. But they don't want her to do that because it's a distraction. Yet her brother is like going through a Tinder app and she's like, wait a second. Like, you can't hear my music, but I can't listen to it because it's distracting. But we can all do Tinder together. And her mom said something and I thought that was very good. She's like, but we can all participate in the Tinder app, but they can't all participate in the music. So as parents, we've done that before where one kid has really been into something, but nobody else has been interested in it. And we're like, let's pick something we all want to do. But that seemed like her whole life. Let's pick something we all want to do. And she's like, but I'm not like you guys.
I'm never able to. Yeah.
So it was just so like, I just sat there and watched this movie, and it's not often where like I'm watching and learning at the same time, but this was very much like I was watching. It was so intrigued. I was learning. It hit all my emotional buttons. It's just a lot of things going on.
Yeah, I like the fact that they didn't necessarily tell you all of what was happening. They let the sign language conversation happen, and you had to kind of figure it out. Occasionally, the daughter would respond to them and then kind of say what was going on. But a lot of the time, it was just them talking. And I found that really refreshing because, like, so often the easy way out would be to put a little subtitle at the bottom or to have her repeat everything that they say as part of the conversation. And they only did that just a little bit. And I love that. I thought that was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was interesting, Val, when you mentioned that her parents, the isolated part, right? That they had kind of isolated themselves, even though the town didn't seem to care. And what was interesting to me was watching it and seeing how they found the subtle ways that deaf people are isolated in our community and put it in there in a very realistic way. The brother, I think, is a very complicated character who has a lot of mixed feelings as far as his independence and what he wants to do. But like on the one hand, he wants the help that his sister can give by interpreting, but on the other hand, he wants to do it all himself. But I mean, the part where he's trying to negotiate for the fish and she can hear that someone on the next bin over is getting a better price for their fish than what he's getting. And he can't hear that. And so she comes in and says something, and then he gets angry because she bailed him out, and he feels like that makes him look stupid.
Yeah.
And the other one that I felt was really powerful to me was when she was in the doctor's office and having to interpret for her parents with the jock itch issue.
That was so funny. She's like, you can never have sex again.
Yeah. And if I were a teenager and having to interpret for my parents at that point, like I would definitely be so uncomfortable that that's what I would say too. And I like how they were like, that's impossible. We can't do that. And she's like, it's only 2 weeks. And what? Like, we really can't do 2 weeks. Like, but that is such a tough issue in the deaf community as far as access to interpreters and access to information. And it's a big hot topic right now because a lot of medical providers have kind of moved to doing video interpreters. So if you come to an appointment and as an ADA accommodation, they want to provide an iPad with someone on the other side doing an interpreting for you.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's not though, because they still miss stuff. There's audio issues, there's technical issues. And so it's not as effective as having an interpreter there, but we have been
something,
right. It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But we have been to appointments before where we've called ahead and we've said, we've got this appointment. Our daughter is deaf. We need to have an interpreter there. And especially with our 2 older kids that are deaf, they're getting to the point where they need to know what's going on at these appointments. But even my daughter, when we go to her endocrinologist and things like that, we need her to know what's happening. And we've gone to appointments where we show up and they're like, oh yeah, we didn't get an interpreter. Sorry, can you just interpret for her? The problem is we need to be there as parents.
Yeah. And you need to be writing things down. You need to be taking stuff in.
And the daughter in this particular case, and this happens a lot where it's like, well, yeah, but you've got somebody who can interpret for you. Yeah. No daughter wants to interpret that kind of like her dad is explaining that his testes are on fire and he, all this, and that his wife has it too. Like no daughter wants to interpret that. You need to have a professional interpreter in those situations, but it does show how it's those subtle ways that I think people in the deaf community can feel isolated from the hearing community.
I did like how, like I think his dad, the mom and dad are really like, we can't go out into the community because we're deaf and we're the only ones here that are deaf. So we're going to go home. We're going to isolate ourselves at home. But the son, again, he's like, I'm going out to have a beer with the guys. That's what people do. Right. And he goes and he knows he's going to sit there and he can't, like they're all having conversations and laughing and, talking. And you can see that he's getting frustrated. But I was so like, I just thought that was like that was full of a lot of courage for me, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. The thing that I love, Jake, is with the young actress's performance, and I don't have her name pulled up, but the fact that she still got across in sign language, kind of that teenage attitude, that frustration and that sass, and she gets it across in the sign language, which I thought was fantastic.
So her name's Amelia Jones.
There we go. Thank you.
And I'll be honest, I'm kind of over teenage attitude in sign language or otherwise, so I can take it or leave it. But no, she does a great job as an actress. And she had to learn sign language before this movie. She spent 9 months learning ASL, and she looked, I don't know sign language, but she looked pretty fluent. Like, it didn't look like she was stumbling or having, like, it looked like she'd been doing it her whole life. I think for the amount of time that she had to learn it, I think she looked pretty good.
Okay. See, and I was curious, I was going to ask you, since I
think it's like any other movie. Like, we're not like combat experts. So when we go and watch an action movie that's like all combat, we're like, that was awesome. And then there's going to be a guy that's next to us that's like a combat guy, and he's like, that wasn't accurate at all.
And I don't want to be that guy. Like, she did a great job, and like, I can sit there in the movie and I can say, man, I know codas in real life, and they sign like it's a second language, and not a second language, like it's their first language in a lot of ways. And she looked really good for an actress who learned it.
That's cool.
Soon before the movie, as she did.
And she has not been in much. She was in some British movies and like an episode of Doctor Who, and that was kind of it. So this was really fun to see her kind of hit the main stage, if you will.
Yeah. And this movie has hit the main stage. I mean, it was an independent film that Apple then picked up at Sundance, I believe, and then
I think it was the highest grossing sold movie ever.
Yeah, it was like the highest deal ever for a movie, and so, which is great. I mean, I think it's great because I do think it does bring a lot of the culture that people are unaware of into the mainstream, so that they can kind of see it and get to know it. And to me, what I liked about this, there were moments where I was like, I'm glad that my wife and I are sitting down and watching this before the kids watch it, and we can decide what maturity level we're going to let the kids watch it.
Sure.
Because even though this is about a family and it's a really cool movie and it is going to make you feel good, it is not one that you want to sit down and watch with your little ones, more than likely. So watch it first and decide what your kids are ready for. But what I love about it is it depicts a real family with real dynamics that, I mean, yes, they're deaf and things like that, but they're having real conversations. Like, I mean, dealing with real family issues. And, I looked at it as, when they were like, you can't listen to the music because we can't all participate in that. I think it went beyond just that they couldn't hear the music, but that she had her headphones in and she was isolating herself from the family. And I think that happens at anybody's dinner table, regardless of whether they can hear or not, and I think that was really great the way they presented that. And, just everything that they show, like, this is a family that they're not perfect. They've got issues financially. They're struggling, everything else. But I love the moment with her boyfriend, as their relationship is growing up, and it's right after the dad had the wonderful conversation with him about make sure your soldier's wearing a helmet and everything else, which him explaining that is why I love sign language, because when you're watching it, it goes so much beyond, like, in English, we just say, oh yeah, make sure that soldier is wearing a helmet. But no, he's like putting the helmet on and strapping it on and like walking like so. And like the way he's describing it, you get a visual picture of what he's saying, and it's fantastic.
It was like it's obviously like a little risque part of the movie, but I
Sure.
have to say, as a parent, I thought that was the best thing in the world, because as parents, sometimes we feel like it's necessary to embarrass our children to get the point across. It's very hard for me to embarrass my child. I have tried a lot, but I've also raised her to be like me, where I'm not easily embarrassed and whatever. Like I was just like, that is fantastic. Like that, I just thought it was so. And this actor, like the guy that plays the dad, I love him. I thought he was probably the best. If you break down some of the scenes we're going to talk about today, I feel like he was the best actor in the movie, because he, like Tracy said, there are not a lot of times where you're reading. He does things so well as an actor with his face and his body language that those were most of the moments that I had these deep connections with or had deep emotions with. He was in those scenes.
Yeah. And I love just after that scene when she's talking to her boyfriend and she's mad because he told everybody about it. Well, he told one of his friends about it, and he was like, yeah, because I thought it was funny. And he's like, you don't know how lucky you are, because your family loves each other, because his family was going through a divorce and everything. And like, that's what I loved about this family. They were not perfect, but they loved each other. And it was hard because in the beginning, her mom was really upset that she was doing choir at all. She's like, if I were blind, would you want to be a painter? And the daughter's like, this isn't about you. And I think initially it was just hard because the parents didn't know how to connect with what she was doing. But I think at the end that what they did connect with is, we want to support her. And that was what made the difference, I think.
And I think that's like, again, that's a theme that happens in a lot of families, where one of our kids or one of our nieces or one of our siblings like gets into something that we don't understand. Like, especially like when like video gaming became a thing, and you could like go to school to be a video game programmer, and parents are like, I don't even understand what that. So you're going to go to school. Yeah, you're wasting your time on video games. And it's like, video games make the most money in the world right now, right?
So like more money than movies right now.
20 years ago, when people were like, yeah, I'm going to go to school to make video games, and parents are like, I don't understand how you can spend so much time doing that, and now you want to go to school for it. It's a waste of time. Like, I feel like we all have those moments in our family, whether it was you with your parents or you with your kids or you with your sibling or whatever. I feel like there's so many things, even though this movie is about this girl living it with this hearing impaired family, I feel like it's so relatable. Like, there's so many things that are relatable about it. Like, if you have a family that has a family business, that is hard. It is really hard to have a family business. And let's take like the impairment out, like, not being able to hear, like trying to move away from your family business when your family just expects you to be a part of that business. But you say, hey, I kind of want to go to school and do something else. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, this is our life. I think that in itself, that in itself is hard. So again, there's all these different themes that have nothing to do with the fact that, her family can't hear and she can. And I just thought it's such a great story, but it is so connective. I think anyone can connect to this story. So they did such a great job at pulling us in, those of us that don't have, these relationships or people in our life that are hearing impaired, that because we felt that there was such a familiarity with the themes they were giving us, we felt comfortable with the other issues enough to learn about them and empathize with them and be like, oh, I wouldn't have even thought about that.
So, one of the things that I remember, and I'm just going to share this because I think we look a lot at like trying to find the politically correct terms and things to say. And one of the things that I learned very first when we found out that they had hearing loss and we started becoming a part on the fringes of the deaf community is, in the deaf community, they prefer either deaf or hard of hearing and not hearing impaired. because that's a label that they equate with autism, which is the prejudice against those with hearing loss. So, and I didn't know that because I was always like, oh yeah, deaf or hearing. And they're like, no, deaf or hard of hearing. So
nice.
Well, and I want to touch on one of the things that Val said is the support that the family ends up giving her, and they struggle with her doing the choir at first. They don't understand it because they can't participate. They can't hear her. They can't. But there are two scenes that really stuck out to me, and that's when she sang for her dad, and he put his hand on her throat to feel the vocal cords. And then the other scene that I thought was just fantastic is when they're told that they can't go into the audition. She's auditioning to try and get to Berkeley. She's trying to get a scholarship. Nobody's allowed inside except for the 3 judges. And the family's just kind of standing there off to the side and nobody's paying them any attention. And the dad looks up and sees that there's a balcony sign and he's like, hey, want to go? And then they just quietly go up the stairs and she's there. And at first she's very, and they do a good job of this throughout the movie, is she's afraid to sing in front of other people, especially those that she doesn't know. So she's not giving a very good performance. And then when she sees her family up in the balcony and she starts to sign to them what she's singing, I was like, that is a genuine, it could have been saccharine. It could have been cheesy, and it didn't. It hit that scene hit me pretty hard.
Yeah, I loved that. I also loved that the teacher came in to play the piano for her. And when she wasn't doing very good to start off with, he played the wrong note on purpose. He said, oh, sorry, that was my fault. Let's go ahead and start from the top.
Well, and I want to bring him up for a minute because this actor, Eugenio, is it Derbez? Is that how you say that? He hasn't been in a ton of American films. He was in, if you watched the Overboard remake of Overboard,
which I'm sure everybody saw that one, right?
Oh, of course.
This is the thing. It's actually a pretty funny movie.
I'm sure it is. I just don't.
Right, but when you think about it, you're like, I don't want to watch that. Yeah. But I actually thought it was pretty funny. So I had seen him in that and a couple other, smaller movies. He has like a bit part in Jack and Jill, which I hate that movie, but my daughter loves it for some reason. I don't know how I have a daughter that loves the worst Adam Sandler movies in the world. She doesn't like the good ones. She likes the horrible ones. But again, I don't understand. And his parents,
there's probably a lot more of the horrible ones than there are the good ones, right? If we're rating Adam Sandler movies.
Okay. Everybody's got their Sharknadoes. Everybody's got their Sharknadoes.
But I thought as I'm watching Overboard, I'm like, okay, this movie is all right, but he's fantastic. Like as an actor, like I couldn't stop looking at him, even though like they didn't really give him like great dialogue. Like it was like the original Overboard. It's just fun, right? It's not a great movie, but it's just fun and campy and whatever. And then when I saw him in this movie, when he comes on camera, I was like, yes, because I'm like, this movie so far is already great. There's great dialogue, everything. And of course he has this like, he's her teacher. He's a music teacher. So he has this, presentation about him and his clothes and, this flair about him. And I was like, okay, but don't go too cheesy. And he didn't.
No.
But he also represented something that I think we overlook, and as parents, sometimes we get a little bit jealous of, and that's when we don't understand something about our kids, but there's a teacher at school that goes above and beyond and helps them with that. Teachers are so important. And, for me with Sammy, there was a lot of times that we were struggling, and she got into slam poetry. And I mean, I've always supported that, but, she still talks to 2 of her slam poetry coaches to this day. But would email them all the time. They had good relationships. They pushed her to publish a book. Like there are teachers out there that really can see something in kids and go a little bit further with them to help them get what they want. And I always love seeing those moments, but I loved also that she went in and she tried her hardest. She never gave him excuses of why she couldn't be anywhere. Like, don't feel, don't feel sorry for me. 'Cause her life is her life. You know what I mean? She's like, this is my life and I just want to be treated like any other person. And she had a lot of things that got in the way, but she never ever was like, but this is why I can't do this.
Right.
She just worked to show up and be there, which a lot of kids use a lot of stupid crap as excuses on why they can. A lot of adults use
I was going to say, and sometimes you don't outgrow it, and then they get jobs and work for me, and I love it. So
wow.
But
yeah.
Crap, I don't remember what I was going to say, but I do. I love the fact that the teacher pushed that right back onto her, and she's like, I've got a lot of stuff going on. He's like, so do I, and you don't waste my time, and I'm here to help you, and I'm offering this to you, and if you don't want to take it, then you don't take it, and that's fine.
I had a love-hate relationship with the teacher throughout the movie, just because I think that number one, I love that he saw her talent and saw how gifted she was and wanted to help her, and she probably didn't have a whole lot of that in her life at that point. And so I love that, but it was so hard seeing what she was struggling with behind the scenes. And a lot of times when she was late, it was legitimately not her fault, but like you said, Val, it's her life and she knows that. And she never offered that up as an excuse, but at the same time, he never really gave her any leeway. And it was constant, like, you were late. This is the third time in a row that you've been late. I don't waste my time. Like,
it's
and
hard,
so I really
that's
struggled
life,
with that.
Man. That's life.
Yeah, for sure.
That's real life.
But what I loved about it is that, because there was a point where I'm like, man, this teacher just needs to know what's going on behind the scenes, and he just needs to know how hard it is, and he needs to cut her some slack. And he didn't ever. But then when it counted, and her boyfriend, let him know, hey, she's here and she's auditioning, because they didn't know that she was going to, and he showed up and was there in her corner.
He had left and came back,
and I love that. And that was when I was like, yeah, this guy is awesome. And to the moment when she goes to share with him that she got into Berkeley was also an awesome moment. And how excited he was.
That was great. Like, we all knew that moment was coming when they're all like, she's logging into the computer and the family's huddled around, but it still worked. And that's, I think, the thing with this film is it didn't ever try and sucker you. It didn't try and like con you into feeling stuff. Like, everything is that emotion is real and it's felt.
Yeah, there was a moment for me that I got super frustrated, and then I was like, I shouldn't be, because this really works. And that was one of the most emotional parts of the movie, is when she invites her family to her performance. And she knows going in that they're not going to be able to experience this. And the whole time I'm thinking, why did she not push to sign these songs at this performance? Like, this is her life. Why? She knows it's her parents aren't going to be able to. Why? And then I thought to myself, she just wants to be another kid at school. She doesn't want to be the kid with the deaf parents, just like a deaf kid wouldn't want to be known as, the deaf kid all the time. And so she had that moment, and I was just so frustrated. I'm like she should be more respectful, and she should have signed during those performances, but she wanted it to be about her. And you could see her mom and dad were getting bored, were getting frustrated. They felt, kind of like, we don't understand what's going on. And then her dad stepped outside of himself, and instead of focusing on the fact that he couldn't hear her sing, he looked around the room. And this is like, I'm going to get emotional again. Like, he looks around the room and he looks at how everyone is reacting to what his daughter is doing. And he's like, you could just see the light go on in his eyes. And if you've ever gone to a kid's performance before, recitals are long and stupid, and your kid gets to perform like one time and there's 80 other things, and you're just like, oh my gosh. But when your kid comes up, and we're usually all with our phones, or all with, and I've done Sammy's poetry so much that now I can hold the phone, but I often don't look at her. I look at other people. I started doing that a couple of years ago. And so when he did that, I was just like, that's that aha moment as a parent or as a supporter, that you realize, okay, like, I understand, because they didn't know if she was good or not. The mom even mentioned it in the movie, like, what if she sucks? Like, what if she's not good? And we can't help her and we can't tell her. And I wish every parent that their kid goes to audition for American Idol, like, would tell them, like, you are not good. Don't go on the show. Like,
my mom's my biggest fan. No.
But so, like,
really a big fan. She told you to stop.
I love that.
I cried that whole scene. Like, I was just a mess.
I thought one of the cool parts of that is they've been leading up to this duet between these two kids this whole movie, and they're finally getting to perform it with all the big moments. And then partway through, the sound just fades out and we don't hear it. And that's when you notice, that's when they start showing the dad looking around, and he's looking for cues from other people as to when the song is over, when do I applaud, what do I do? And that's when he starts to notice everybody else is they're bobbing their heads, they're like smiling, they're really.
One lady was crying, so I didn't feel bad.
Well, but I love the fact that they did that with no sound there. I thought that was even more impactful than having that. And part of me at first was pissed. I'm like, no, I want to hear them sing this song that we've been building up to. And then I'm like, okay, this makes sense. All right.
It's not about you, Tracy.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Well, and I loved that whole sequence, right? Because you've got him kind of looking around and realizing how much it's moving everybody in the audience. And then afterward, she introduces her teacher to them and she interprets for him up until he says, you really need to go to the audition tomorrow because like, I really think you're throwing away this great opportunity. She's like, I'm not going to sign that.
I'm going to just sign the first part.
But dad caught what he was saying because you can see that dad's watching him as he's talking and he knows what he's saying. And then that leads to them that night, having her sing and feeling her vocal cords while she's singing. And then that's what leads the next morning to them loading her up in the car and getting her to the audition because dad started to realize this is something she's really good at. And I'm not going to hold her back.
And I love the fact that it wasn't her demanding that they take her to the audition. Like you get the feeling that if it was up to her, she just would have missed it. But it's the dad who gets them up early and everybody gets in the car and everybody goes to the rehearsal or the audition. Yep.
And and the moment when she decides to stay, that's where I really love the reaction of her brother, who's like, oh, great. Here comes Saint. I can't remember her name now, but here she is again to rescue us, to save the day. And she gets all hurt. And then when she goes and talks to him later and he's like, this isn't where you belong. You need to go. That's where you should be. And it's just, I don't know, just great family dynamics in the film. I think the relationships are great. I loved watching them in their struggle as fishermen because they're struggling just along with all the other fishermen. And them fighting the system, man, starting their own co-op and saying we're going to sell our own fish. We don't need this other third man to come in.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about next. Is the son really was like, we don't have to follow these rules. Like we can do this ourselves. He had these big plans, and the dad's like, we can't do that. We can't do that because nobody will, follow us. Nobody will listen to us. Nobody takes us seriously. Right. But he never asked anybody that. That's just what he thought. And then when he finally stood up at the meeting, and she interprets for him, and he says all these things, and everyone gets behind him. And then you realize, the town just wants to work together. They all have a common goal of they need to pay their bills. They don't want to shut down their businesses, and they just need somebody to help them. And so I thought that was such a good thing. Like, it doesn't matter, what your obstacle is or what you think your obstacle is. Because a lot of us put our own obstacles in front of us. I'm not saying it's not harder for them because they don't know what's going on. But I think a lot of us, we think, because we have to deal with this, that we can't do this. You know what I mean? Like we create our own obstacles. And the son, he didn't create those obstacles for himself. Yeah. He was like, I want to go have beers with the guys. I know it's going to be awkward and I'm not going to, but I want to go. There's a better way to do this. We don't need to be giving these people all our money and we can do our own thing. And then the minute it clicked with the dad, it was so great. And then there's the moments with the mom that I feel like like as a teenage daughter, I was like, oh, why isn't she seeing this? Like, her daughter, you can't just expect your daughter to do things. Then I think to myself, oh, wait, I've done that 3 times this week. Maybe I need to communicate better with my kid instead of just thinking that she needs to be here because I need her to be here. So,
yeah. Well, go ahead, Tracy.
I was just going to ask you, Jake. So have any of your kids seen the movie?
Not yet. They've all asked to see it, and my wife and I, we're going to let our 2 oldest watch it.
That makes sense. Sure.
So, our daughter Lucy would also like to watch it, but I just don't think she's ready yet.
Just get up and do a song and dance in front of the screen when it's like
flicks.
Yeah, clean flicks it.
Well, and this movie, we've watched other movies with our kids, where maybe there's some bad language or whatever, and they miss it because they missed it in the captions or whatever. They don't know.
Right.
But this one, like some of the stuff that we don't want our 9-year-old to pick up and repeat is in sign language, and she could definitely.
And it's dramatic, and you're not gonna miss it.
No.
I don't want them going around calling each other, faces and stuff.
I was
like
so
that.
excited when I learned that. I think that's what I messaged you guys first. Is hey, I just learned how to say S face.
And I'm not ready to explain to my 9-year-old daughter yet what a condom is and why it's important and things like that. And she's gonna have all sorts of questions as she's watching him describe that. So I just. And not that he's overly graphic, but it's enough that she's going to be like, what is he talking about?
What is happening?
I'm not ready to explain that to her yet. My almost 15-year-old and my 13-year-old, we can have those conversations because they're at a different maturity level. And I think that's what's so important about anything like this. I'm not going to tell you, don't let your kids watch this movie, but that's the decision process that my wife and I went through as we watched it was.
Everybody's kids are at different places. Yeah. Like I know people that have let their kids watch horror films since they were 3.
Right.
And and they play shooter up video games since they were 4. And so they let their kids watch things that I don't even want to watch. Everybody's at a different place. Just, kind of know that there are some very visual things in this movie that are, expectations.
That was the other thing I was going to ask you, Jake. So I've always felt like sign language is very expressive. It's not just the hands. So much of it to me as an outsider looking in is in the face, is in the body language, is in the way that you maneuver. And I loved how animated these conversations were, especially when it was very emotional dialogue. Like when they're talking about how, you don't belong here. You need to go out there. And I caught like enough to know what they were talking about, but I didn't, of course, know everything that was being said. But I was going to ask you how realistic was that?
Oh yeah, it was spot on. And and all of these actors, I mean, the dad, his name is Troy Kotzer. Sorry, he's been in a lot of different movies that they're deaf movies. In he's a deaf filmmaker. He's been doing stuff like this for a long time. So he's a very good, solid actor. But the thing is that's what conversations look like when you're around a bunch of people who are native sign users. Like that's what they look like. When I go to my kids' school and I see them interacting with each other, that's what it looks like when my kids at home are interacting with each other. I mean, it was so spot on. And I think that was the realism where I was grateful that they hired actors who were deaf because they brought that to the table. They know what it looks like when we're talking and we're having these conversations. It's not just about the signs that we're using. And I think for me, that was the big difference between her sign language and their sign language. Like she was good, but she was missing a lot of the expressiveness that goes into the signs. I mean, how big you sign and the way you sign and things like that, that's expressing that emotion. And like you said, Tracy, in the face. And I mean, it was spot on from things that I've seen. And those are the moments where I'm like, my sign language is awful. And I wish it was better because I can see it and it's just it. And for me, it's beautiful to watch.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to, and then I love the scene too, at the very end where the music professor teacher tries to say nice to meet you and he doesn't sign it correctly.
No, he does not.
I mean, and that's so sweet that he's trying so hard. He's like, I learned that on YouTube, you know.
Yeah, you need to go back and when she explains to her that that's not what he signed, he was like,
and he's like,
that's not what I. Yeah, we know, we get it. Like, and it's just like anything else, and that's what I try to help people understand. Sign language is just like any other language. I've learned another spoken language. When I spent 2 years in Germany, and there are words that you learn that an innocent word that you would use is very close to a not very innocent word, and you just don't want to get that wrong, but you're going to, and it's going to happen in an inopportune time. But people understand when you're trying to learn the language, and a lot of times they appreciate the effort. And I think that's what we saw there, where he was like, "That's not what yeah, we get it.
It's all good.
We know."
I just felt like it was just so cool to see this other language. Like I've seen the interpreters, like when somebody's having a news conference and stuff like that. The ones that I love, and I am not a hip hop rap fan, but I love watching people sign at like really fast hip hop shows. Like they get into it. It is so fun to watch. It's so cool.
Yeah. And I loved that was the music that he was into, because he could turn it up loud in the truck and he could feel the vibrations of the beat. And she was embarrassed every time he showed up because he had no idea the words that were being shouted out or like what they were. He just liked the beat, and that's what he enjoyed.
He could feel that bass, yeah.
And there was so much of that was so real to me, living with 3 individuals who are deaf. Is that like that's my son likes music that he can feel. He likes going to the movie theater to watch a movie. He likes it and he doesn't like it. He likes watching movies at home because he can read the captions easier than he can in the movie theater. But he likes it in the movie theater because the bass will shake the theater and he can feel it and he feels like he's part of it.
Yeah, it's all about the bass.
It's all about that bass. But I even like one of the hard moments when the Coast Guard showed up and they had no idea that they were there and that they were yelling for him or anything like that, because that happens, unfortunately, too much in the world where, people are, who are deaf or hard of hearing are being approached by police officers. And oftentimes they think that they're being difficult or resisting arrest or things like that. And they just don't know what's happening until they're right there and things like that. And I like that it brought in some of those real moments so you can see that, like, and I know that you could watch that and be like, well, yeah, but how many deaf fishermen are out there being approached by the Coast Guard? I don't know. But but if you put that on the street and it's a cop pulling somebody over or stopping somebody on the street or something like that, it's the same kind of interaction. And unfortunately, because of things that have happened, things escalate very quickly nowadays. And, it can be a very unfortunate thing that we don't want to see happen. So, but yeah, so I like those kind of real moments. That and the doctor's office moment, I'm just like, yeah, that is. And the bass, like all of it just felt very genuine to me. And I appreciated that. So.
Well, I am so glad that to get that insight from you, because as I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, I'm picking up stuff. I'm following along. It's fine. But you've deepened my appreciation for this film even more.
Yeah.
Well, good. We should probably give it a grade.
Okay.
So we'll start with you today, Val.
I'm giving it an A.
All right. Tracy? And I like that we just aren't even giving an explanation. It's just an A. It's just an A.
I mean, I feel like I explained the whole show.
I agree.
Why I just think it was well made. I think the acting was fantastic. I think that it's universal across the board. Like anybody can watch this. If somebody's like, well, I don't, need to watch it because like nobody in my family's deaf or what, like that's the whole reason you should watch it.
Yeah, that's actually a better reason to watch it.
It's a better reason to watch it, but there's more. It's like any other story. There's more to that story. That's one element. Yes, it plays a huge part, but to me, it's a fantastic movie. I hope it gets nominated for a ton of crap outside of the film festivals because we need more movies like this made.
Yeah, this is the type of movie that we always talk about we want to see made, but don't often get made. The acting is incredible. Marlee Matlin said that it was a dream role for her. I love the fact, I read just a little bit about the making of the film, and I love the fact that they had two interpreters with the director at all times to make sure that they were communicating well, and that the writer director is not deaf. They had to kind of immerse themselves into this culture. It's a window into a culture that I don't see that often, that I don't get to experience as often. I thought the acting was phenomenal. I thought it was genuine and heartfelt. I'm going to go A- on this one. It was just, I don't know. It didn't quite hit the A mark, but it's close. But it's really, really, really touching and good.
Yeah, I think everybody should watch this movie, just because I do think that this is a very good, genuine depiction of a lot of things that people are not as familiar with. I mean, this is like, everybody loved A Quiet Place because of a lot of different aspects of why people loved it. But one of the big things was they loved how great Millie was in it, and she was deaf and all this other stuff. This takes it to the next level because this is putting it in a very real life situation. And I think it's just a little bit more realistic and down to earth and things like that, obviously.
Giant aliens invading Earth. Come on.
Right. I mean, 2021, who knows? It could happen. But
I was going to say, that wouldn't surprise us. It's like, oh, okay, aliens are invading.
Yeah, that makes sense. But this puts it in a real scenario and situation and story, and I think it's great. I agree, Tracy. This is probably an A- for me too, and I think it's a very good movie. I think there are some things that need to be tightened up. I think there were some points in the story where it felt a little disjointed. However, I still want everybody to go out and see it. I still think this is a really, really great movie, and I want it to do really well because I want people to realize, I want movie makers to realize that if you tell stories about individuals who are deaf and you have individuals who are deaf playing those characters, people will still watch the movie. And so I want everybody to get Apple Plus. I want everybody to watch it, and I want it to be a huge success and huge hit just for that reason, so that we continue to tell these kinds of stories. So yeah, there you go. I don't know why I was waiting for somebody else to wrap things up at that point,
because it's all about that bass,
Oh my God. Why did I do that? I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm so sorry.
You can find us in all the places on social media. It could have been worse.
I could have tried to hit the Mariah Carey notes from Free Guy last week.
I really wanted you to do that, though.
Yeah,
I'm requesting that.
It could have been worse. No, that's what we wanted you to do, Tracy. I don't know what the
dream lover come. Yeah, that's what I want you to do.
Putting together our Facebook story and our TikTok video for that, like, I kind of got sick of that song after a couple of days of having to edit stuff. But it's anyway, we are on all the places on social media, including Facebook still, thankfully. So you can find us on Facebook, Twitter. Twitter, we are at Movies Make Us, and then on Instagram, we are at Movies That Make Us. You can follow us on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Movies That Make Us. We would love to see you there. And you will see us at FanX in a couple of weeks. We are excited to see everybody there. Again, no touching, but we would love to talk to you. Maybe we'll do fist bumps or something.
And I'll have prizes, by the way. I will always have prizes with me at all of our panels.
And hopefully we'll be able to do one of our big roundtable podcasts.
Yes.
Because those are always so much fun.
I know you guys love them. They stress me out so much, but
we'll figure it out.
Why? Val, why? I don't know why, but we will make
let
it
it go. Just immerse yourself.
Let it go.
No, I enjoy the recording of it. It's getting the equipment together and putting it all together. And then,
that's old hat by now. We're at episode 117. Come on.
That's right. Training wheels are off. Anyway, thank you everybody for listening. And until next time, we won't see you at the movies.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been a Stolen Droids Media production.